Sydney Hunter and the Sacred Tribe is a homebrew game for the Intellivision, released by Collectorvision in December 2016. I had previously reviewed the Sacred Tribe release for the Commodore 64, which may explain why some of this review might sound slightly familiar. In Sacred Tribe, you return as the famous explorer Sydney Hunter. This time, instead of making your way to the temple, you are trapped within the temple and must find your way out. The back of the box explains. You're Sydney Hunter, a great adventurer. You've been traveling to South America seeking for treasures. During one night you've been captured and made a prisoner by a sacred tribe. Even if they don't want to hurt you, they won't let you free either. The graphics and sound on the Intellivision are well done. This game expands upon and improves upon its predecessor, the Shrines of Peril, in every way. When the cartridge is first powered on, we are presented with a nice Exidy logo splash screen. Exidy was a successful video game manufacturer back in the 70s and 80s. According to Wikipedia, Exidy stands for Excellence in Dynamics. The rights to the Exidy name and logo were acquired by Collectorvision in 2015. We are then brought to the main title screen. The game's title is proudly displayed with one animated flaming torch and copyright 2016 Exidy. A nice tune plays in the background. When the game begins, you'll find yourself in a cavern. You'll notice blue shaded graphics with 5 skulls etched into the stone. Gameplay. You start the game by speaking to one of the village elders, who is asking you to please help them find the way to the sacred doorway which leads to the ancient Mayan city. After accepting the challenge, you will quickly realize you're at the top of a maze and must travel down at least 9 levels to make your way out. Doing so is not an easy task, being there are many obstacles standing in your way, including spiders, bats, wasps, scorpions, snakes, rats, slugs, and entryways requiring gems to pass through. There are a few chests in the game which require a key to open. There are even a few screens with quicksand lining the bottom of the screen. If you happen to fall in, don't worry, you sink very slowly and can jump out to escape. You have to be a careful explorer. Try not to miss any room that have gems. You need all of them in order to bribe some of the tribe members to pass further into the game. In addition to gems, you can collect pineapples, which will grant you a spare Sydney Hunter. Controls. Using the controller disc, you can move Sydney Hunter in all 4 directions, although to control him vertically you will have to be on a ladder. Pressing any side button will make him jump. When jumping, you'll notice he always jumps forward in the direction he's pointing, rather than jumping straight up and down. Pressing 1 on the keypad will display the game's statistics, including the number of gems and keys collected and lives remaining. Pressing the 5 key will skip past the text screens. I noticed if you pressed Enter, Clear, or 0 on the keypad, this will nudge Sydney Hunter left a little, while pressing 4 or 6 will nudge him to the right slightly. Scoring. There is no score in Sydney Hunter and the Sacred Tribe. One way to keep score might be to simply record how long it takes to complete the entire game in one sitting. The gems are color-coded, each one awarding you a different quantity of gems. The blue one awards 1 gem, the red one is worth 5, the gold or yellow one is worth 10, and finally the green one is worth 30 gems. There are gems hidden in chests which require a key to open. Strategy. Sydney Hunter and the Sacred Tribe is not that difficult a game. It's more of a marathon than a sprint. You have to have patience and try to learn the game's map. I found the most success once I started mapping things with pencil and paper. The key with the Intellivision version is learning the distance you jump and the timing required in order to successfully make a jump while avoiding obstacles. Learn where to find the pineapples, which award you a spare Sydney Hunter, and be careful to avoid the enemies when possible. For example, there are a few screens where you do not have to risk jumping a scorpion. You can simply climb down a ladder and wait for it to pass. When attempting to jump the slug, since they move so quickly, be sure to start your jump well in advance. On a few of the screens with the wasp, I've learned you can exit and re-enter the screen quickly and then run right past them. It seems to work every time. It's all about the timing. On the final boss screen, you can use that same trick. Upon entering, if the fireballs are shooting directly towards you on the bottom, exit the screen quickly and re-enter until the fireballs are firing overhead, then head straight to the finish line. Graphics. The graphics in Sydney Hunter and the Sacred Tribe, which are credited to J.F. Dupois and Keith Erickson, are amazing. There are a lot of visual elements in the game to take in. For example, the eerie windows, skulls etched into the concrete walls, fire, and even quicksand on some screens. There was a lot of detail and effort put into getting it right. Sydney Hunter himself is a nice, multicolored and animated sprite. You can tell he's wearing a hat and colorful clothing. You can even tell he's wearing blue shoes. There are random skeletons, spider webs, stone columns, ladders, and collapsing bridges. The imagery does evoke the feeling of being deep within the Mayan caverns. Sound. I like the simple music in the game and appreciate how it changes as you progress. This helps keep it interesting. The various sound effects in the game include a sound for moving Sydney Hunter, a separate sound for jumping, a sound for opening a chest, picking up a pineapple, a sound for dying, a sound for text being displayed in the game. The Sacred Soul, which can shoot arrows at you, has a sound when you enter the screen and a separate sound for shooting the arrows. The snakes, wasps, bats, and rats each have their own unique sounds. There is a different sound for each color of gem you collect. Even the fireballs, which shoot up from below, have their own sound effect. When you lose a Sydney Hunter, a tune is played. When your mission fails, a different tune is played. And of course, another tune plays when the game is completed. Notable differences between the Commodore 64 and Intellivision versions. I decided to do a quick comparison between the Commodore 64 version and Intellivision since I own both and have recently posted my review of the Commodore 64 version. On the Commodore 64, there's enough horizontal resolution to display a few of the game's statistics, such as the number of remaining Sydney Hunters, gems, and keys. On the Intellivision, in order to see this information, you have to first press 1 on the keypad. On the Commodore 64, the background windows are multicolored, and the game is more generous with the number of pineapples spread throughout the game. There is also one additional method of navigating up and down through some of the screens, a green vine. I will say there is one graphical element that actually looks better on the Intellivision version, in my opinion, and that is the quicksand. On the Commodore 64 version, you have the option to display an interactive map which displays your progress through the game. This option is not present on the Intellivision version. On the Commodore 64 version, there are many screens with a nice graphical effect of a torch lighting up the room. This effect is absent here. On the Commodore 64 version, there is a temporary invincibility mode which can be activated by grabbing the floating skull-looking object. There is no such temporary invincibility power-up on the Intellivision version. On the Commodore 64 version, I counted 11 baddies, while on the Intellivision I counted 9. Notably missing are the Fast Spider and Black Mamba, which was essentially a red snake that could be jumped. While on the subject of baddies, on the Commodore 64 version, there are oftentimes more than one baddie on the same screen, or there will be an enemy plus an additional obstacle to deal with. While on the Intellivision, I don't recall ever seeing more than one baddie or obstacle on the same screen. I contacted the game's developer, Oscar Toledo G, regarding this. He offered a great explanation. Sydney Hunter is composed by 6 Intellivision sprites. The enemies are composed by 2 Intellivision sprites. 6 plus 2 equals 8. That's the maximum sprites visible on the screen. Of course, more can be done using flickering. Also, on the Commodore 64, there's a rolling skull screen not present on the Intellivision version. And finally, on the Intellivision final boss screen, there is a vertically moving snake-like skeleton shooting fireballs at you, after which, if you pass, the game immediately ends. On the Commodore 64 version, there's a similar boss screen, only it shoots rolling skulls at you and the game does not immediately end. Instead, there are 2 more scenic screens to navigate through with no obstacles before the end scenes. Packaging. There were 2 versions of the game released by CollectorVision for the Intellivision, the limited edition version and the standard or Game of the Year versions. There are a few differences between the 2 versions in addition to separate box art images. The limited edition features 2 overlays as opposed to 1. It includes a nice 8.5 by 11 bonus map which was not included in the standard edition. The limited edition purchase also offered a chance to win a free ColecoVision multi-cart. The packaging for this game is fantastic. The box artwork was credited to Jeremy Griffer. In fact, along with Game of the Year, it was also voted Best Packaging of the Year by the Atariage and Intellivision community. The limited edition artwork looks like a scene right out of the game where Sydney is swinging over lava while reaching out for a gem with a bat and tribesmen in pursuit. The Mayan architecture is represented. The standard edition artwork depicts a slightly different scene with Sydney Hunter holding a torch in his left hand and a whip in his right hand. He appears to be deep within a temple, with skulls etched in stone in the background. The word Exidy has also been injected into the image. The limited edition image is also used on the game's printed manual, although it's monochrome. I love that the game's manual includes color photos of the development team, something you don't see very often. An authentic looking 8.5 by 11 map of the Mayan temple is also included. What clues can be gleaned from it? I did find a typo in the manual on page 3 where it says to make sure the Super Minefield cartridge is placed in slot firmly engaged. Oops. CollectorVision also published Super Minefield for the Intellivision back in 2016. OSTs. A gentleman on Atariage who goes by NYUUNDERE was selling original soundtrack copies for Sydney Hunter and the Sacred Tribe and Mecha for the MSX systems. I picked up a copy and can tell you it is good but quite short, only about 7 minutes long in total. However, it includes all of the soundtracks from the Intellivision version, borrowing artwork from the limited edition and a gameplay screenshot on the back side of the sleeve. Ports. Sydney Hunter has sort of become its own Mayan-themed franchise. The Sacred Tribe was ported to the Commodore 64 and is the third game released in this product line, the first being Sydney Hunter in the Caverns of Death, and second, Sydney Hunter in the Shrines of Peril. The Commodore 64 version of Sacred Tribe was released in a disc and digital formats, as well as a limited cartridge release. In addition to the Commodore 64, the Sacred Tribe was also ported to the following systems. The Intellivision saw 2 releases, Limited and Game of the Year editions. ColecoVision and MSX systems and the Sega Master System versions were also recently released. Bugs. Sydney Hunter and the Sacred Tribe for the Intellivision is an extremely well-polished game. You can tell a lot of effort went into getting it just right. I don't think you can classify the following as bugs, more just minor nitpicks. On one of the screens where you retrieve the key, Sydney's sprite can temporarily be seen behind the window graphic in the background. Also, there are a few screens where there's a ladder in the middle of the quicksand, and it's sometimes difficult to jump from the quicksand onto the platform to go up the ladder without jumping past it. Like I said, minor nitpicks. Overall, well done. Suggestions for improvement. As with the Commodore 64 version, I believe this version could have benefited from changing the color of the stone background images once in a while, the further you progress into the game. Although there are a lot of baddies, it could have always used a few more. I would have liked to have seen some puzzle elements thrown in. I would have liked the ability to toggle the music on or off. Throwing in a game save feature or at least checkpoints would also have been welcomed. Easter eggs. The one Easter egg I know about is just a secret room that leads you to a stash of gems. It's pretty simple to find. I'll give a hint. It can be found 6 levels down from where you start. I have discovered 2 game cheats which are not Easter eggs, but I'll cover them here. If you wish to figure them out yourself, skip ahead 31 seconds into this video. The first cheat is enemy invincibility. You will no longer be killed by any of the baddies, but can still die from other ways, such as sinking in the quicksand or falling into the flames, for example. To activate this cheat, from the title screen on your keypad, type in 147 and start the game. The border will rapidly flash twice. The second cheat will grant you 200 spare Sydney Hunters. You can activate it from the title screen by keying in 852 and start the game. The border will rapidly flash twice. Purchasing information. I picked up my box copy for $60 from CollectorVision way back in July 2017. It is currently listed as sold out on their website. The ROM is available to download from the following link. All they ask is that if you do not previously own the game, to make a small donation. Conclusion. Sydney Hunter and the Sacred Tribe for the Intellivision significantly expands upon the playing field over its predecessor, with over 100 unique screens, 9 unique songs, and at least 9 different types of enemies. This expansion was a step in the right direction. Frankly, I was amazed the Intellivision version had just as many screens as the Commodore 64 port. The assumption being the Commodore has newer, superior hardware. I think I assumed it would have a smaller scope. The fact that it's even close is quite impressive. CollectorVision has boldly brought this game not only to the Intellivision, but to several other gaming systems, which is rare in the retro gaming community. That was no easy task, which I commend them for. The game is well polished and, more importantly, fun to play. It leaves me yearning for more Sydney Hunter. This is my 3rd delve into the Sydney Hunter universe. I enjoyed playing the Sacred Tribe, and I'm looking forward to playing more of these games. Highly recommended.